We return and resume our scheduled hearing this afternoon. The next witness we have is the Secretary of Finance, Ms. Larissa Larson, and she is here relevant to Article 15, a neglect allegation or charge relative to the remittance or non-remittance of the retirement fund employer contribution to the retirement fund. And before I start, Ms. Larson, would you kindly raise your right hand, please? I will put you under oath. Do you swear or affirm, under penalty of law, that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Is the mic on?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Larson, again for the record, would you kindly state your full name, your title, and the agency you represent?
My name is Larissa Larson. I'm Secretary for Department of Finance.
Thank you. Would your counsel do the same?
Assistant Attorney General James Carney, here as legal counsel for Secretary Larson.
Mr. Carney, just to clarify, are you the legal counsel from the Attorney General's office representing the Department of Finance?
No, normally I don't represent the Department of Finance.
So just for this purpose. Okay, thank you. Before we start with the questioning, does every member have a copy of the summary provided by the Secretary of Finance relevant to the transfers made to the retirement fund by fiscal year? Does everybody have a copy of this report? Okay. Secretary, maybe before we start the questions, maybe you can take us through this and maybe clarify anything that needs to be clarified with regards to the each fiscal year. If no, then we can begin the question and answers after that. So go ahead, please.
Okay, I think before I begin, I'd just like to clarify that I've only been in my position for a little under 2 years. So there are some, if there are some questions about prior years, I might need to get back to you, but I'd be more than willing to look at them. What you have in front of you is a spreadsheet broken down showing the actual transfers made to retirement fund from the years 2006 through 2012. There are just a few things to point out here. In the 2006 column, that is not a fiscal year total. That is from January 2006 to the end of the fiscal year. And that's just broken down that way because that was when the governor was elected and put into office. We make various various transfers to retirement fund. You'll see all the different categories there. So we pay workman's comp, retirement pension. There was poker revenue transferred for several years. Owed to occupancy and container tax. We make payments to judicial building, the loan on that judicial building. And we also pay employer-employee contribution. Over the years, we've contributed a total, this is not including our federal contributions, this is just local funds. Federal funds are paid in full. The employer and employee contribution are up to date, so there's no questions with transfers there. So this is primarily local. So when you look at that perspective, right now we've transferred about $94 million over that period of time. The two bottom rows, I believe, are the ones that you have the most question about. Employee contributions have been paid in full over the years. Employer contributions have factored in the various laws that have reduced the percentage deducted from employee paychecks. So if there was any reduction in the amount that retirement fund would ask for, it's factored into these amounts as well. Any questions so far?
Are you done?
Just of note, and I think yeah, actually let's just open the floor for questions.
Ms. Larson, is it is it safe to do just a simple comparison? Basically, comparing your figures for each fiscal year with the figures that the retirement fund provided with this body? Is there are there factors or reasons why the figures may not be the same?
Yes. What you'll see normally, that's one of the reasons we're going to court, and there's a lawsuit that's been filed against the Commonwealth. The retirement fund is claiming what the actuary rates have been claiming over the years, and we've been going based on what's been budgeted. Another thing of note, as far as these figures go, some of the payments might be applicable to prior years and not necessarily for the fiscal years that are listed here. So if we made back payments for prior years that were due, the data would be a little bit off here as well. To get something that breaks it down by fiscal years and what payments each apply to will take a significant amount of time. And I know that we were under a short time frame as far as getting that data together for you. We also feel that eventually we'll be asking the court to reconsider the $300 million judgment, and several factors will contribute to that request. One of them is that we've had many employees withdraw their contribution over the years, so we no longer have an obligation to pay retirement benefits to those employees. We also have several hundred employees who are withdrawing as we transition to Social Security. So those retirement benefits are also not applicable. There's currently an actuary study that is being conducted, and once that is done, we'll have a better picture of what the amount should be. And we anticipate asking the court to reconsider their judgment on the amount. Another thing of note, as far as the $300 million is concerned, the administration has switched its focus, and we are not focused on payment of the $300 million as a goal. We are now focused on yearly payments to our retirees. We're estimating about $60 to $65 million for per annum for our retirees, and our focus is just getting to that point where we can pay our retirees as we go. The rest of the population will be transitioning to Social Security, and that should take care of their retirement benefits as well.
Thank you. Ms. Larson, when you stated that there were times when what was budgeted in a fiscal year ended up being, what's the term you use, where it was applied to a previous fiscal year to pay for prior years, I think was what you said. Did that occur during the period of time that we are asking for, between 2006 and 2012?
That was one of the first issues I faced when I first took this position. In the first month as secretary, we had to go to court over this issue, and we were attempting to pay current employer contribution and back pay several pay periods each time we made payments. I believe those were back paid to maybe 2008 or 9, but I'd have to get back to you on that. We also had several issues in 2011 where we had a drop in revenue. We had significant issues with our power, medical bills from CHC. A lot of the times our decisions for payments boiled down to whether or not it was a life or death issue. If we had a choice between paying a contribution to retirement fund or getting blood for the hospital, oftentimes our decisions would be made on, you know, what is going to affect the entire population and not just one segment of the population. Each of these payments, though, is logged as a liability in our books, and it is a record that we have. I anticipate that we'll be making significant payments to retirement fund, especially as we transition to Social Security. As people withdraw from the fund, our current contribution that we need to make on a bi-weekly basis is going to drop. That's going to allow us more money to pay back in time for anything that might not have been paid.
Thank you. And for the record, I don't think it was 2008. I think 2008 is the only year where your figures and the retirement's figures are exact, down to the penny.
If I may comment on some of the
Please continue.
discrepancy. We have had issues where we're reconciling numbers with retirement fund. We are going back in time. I was present at a hearing where one of the legal counsels for retirement fund did say on the record that their records were in shambles and they would need time to reconcile their numbers. We go back and forth a lot between our department and theirs to reconcile all of our numbers and anything that may be a discrepancy.
And just to clarify further, Ms. Larson, you just stated that the administration is moving in a different direction now in terms of the retirement fund contribution. In the past, I think you stated that a portion of what was being remitted to the retirement fund did include paying off the 300 million, the unfunded liability. And you have said that there is a change in direction, that now the priority, if you will, is no longer to pay the unfunded liability, but rather to earmark those funding directly to the fund for the purposes of pension, paying out the pension. Did I hear that correctly?
Well,
Or did I state that correctly?
maybe I should just clarify what I was trying to say. When it comes to the 300 million, that figure will change. And as every year we're going to be paying our retirees, and every payment we make is payment towards that 300 million. But we're not targeting necessarily to pay 300 million. We're targeting at the very least to cover their retirement, the retirement payments to the retirees. So as we go, it makes sense to be banking for future payments as well. So just because we're aiming for that target number doesn't mean that's where we plan to stop. It's our hope that, in collaboration with the legislature, we can come up with some revenue generation and revenue generating bills, and in that way we can get more revenue to the Commonwealth. One of the issues we've faced is we have no new revenue coming into the Commonwealth, and we're working with the same amount of money every year. So it doesn't give us a lot of flexibility to stay in operations as a government. We've had significant drops in revenue. We've struggled to pay just our basic obligations. And as much as we want to pay extra to everybody, we're going to have to make some hard choices. So we've had to make them. I'm optimistic that we're starting to recover, but I'm cautious in saying that we're recovering. We've seen slight increases in revenue. We've had increased enforcement actions that are bringing revenue into the Commonwealth. We have new investors coming in in the tourist industry. So as that revenue comes in, we feel that we can dedicate more of that to our necessary areas, which include the retirement fund.
Thank you.